Well, good morning, everybody. The plan was to be here in person with you today, but the best laid plans aft gang agree. So, if you are someone who likes to come up front for the words for all ages, anyone of any age, now is a really good time to do that because I am going to share a story with you that I just love that's adapted from a book called The Quilt Maker's Gift by Jeff Brumbo. So, ready? You guys settled? I have to just have faith because I can't see you. So here we go. High in the blue, misty mountains lived a quilt maker who had sewn for so long that even the oldest great great grandfathers could not remember a time she wasn't up there stitching away. Her quilts were said to be the prettiest in all the world. Blues like the deepest ocean, whites like the northern snows, greens and purples from wildflowers, and reds, oranges, and pinks like the best sunsets. Some whispered that her needles were enchanted. Others said her quilts had fallen from the shoulders of angels. Many people climbed her mountains with pockets full of gold, hoping to buy a quilt. But she always said the same thing. I give my quilts to those who are poor or unhoused. They are not for the rich. On the coldest nights, she would slip down the mountain to a nearby city, wander the cobblestone streets, find someone shivering in the dark, and wrap a fresh quilt around their shoulders. She'd tuck them in and tiptoe away, and the next morning, with a cup of blackberry tea, she would begin a new quilt. Now, at this same time, there lived a powerful king who loved gifts more than anything. The thousands he received for holidays and his birthday were never enough, so he passed a law celebrating his birthday twice a year. When that still didn't satisfy him, he sent soldiers to hunt down anyone who had not yet given him a present. His castle overflowed with treasures, things that shimmered and gleamed and ticked and glowed, but he never smiled. Somewhere, he grumbled, there must be one beautiful thing that will finally make me happy, and I will have it. Well, one day, a soldier told him about the quilt maker. And how is it, the king thundered, that she has never given me a quilt? She only makes them for the poor, your majesty, the soldier replied. She will not sell them for any amount of money. Well, the king stormed up the mountain with his soldiers, but the quilt maker just laughed. My quilts are for the poor and needy, and I can see that you are neither. I want one, the king demanded. It might be the one thing that makes me happy. The woman thought for a moment. Give away all you own, she said, and with each gift that you give, I'll add another piece to your quilt. When all your things are gone, your quilt will be finished. Give away my treasures, cried the king. I take things, I don't give them away. And he ordered his soldiers to seize a quilt from her. But she tossed it out the window where a sudden gust of wind carried it far beyond their reach. Well, the king was furious. He dragged her down the mountain and up another mountain, and he had ironworkers chain her inside a sleeping bear's cave. Again he demanded a quilt. Again she refused. Very well, he said, when the bear awakes, he will make breakfast of you. But when the bear opened his eyes and roared, the quilt maker calmly stitched him a soft pillow. Delighted, the bear broke his chains and welcomed her to stay. Meanwhile, the king, who was good at being greedy but terrible at being mean, tossed and turned all night long, worrying about her. At last he woke his soldiers, and they marched in their pajamas to rescue her. Instead, they found the quilt maker and the bear happily eating berries and honey. Then the king remembered how angry he was. He tried imprisoning her on a tiny island and then in the top of a tree, but none of it worked. She always stitched something kind and won her way out. At last, she repeated her offer. Give away all that you can, and I'll make you a quilt. With each gift that you give, I'll make another piece. I can't, the king cried. I love my beautiful things. If they don't make you happy, she said gently, What good are they? The king thought about this for a very long time. Finally, he sighed. All right, if I must give away my treasures, then I must. Well, at first he could barely stand to part with anything, so the first thing he gave away was just a single glass marble. But when the boy who received it smiled so brightly, the king returned for more gifts. Soon he was giving away velvet coats to people in rags. He gave away rare Siamese cats and fish as clear as glass. Then he brought out his grand merry-go-round with real horses. Children shrieked with delight, cartwheeling around him, and the smallest of smiles crept onto the king's face. A child grabbed his hand and pulled him into the dancing, and the king laughed out loud. How can this be? He cried. How can giving things away make me so happy? Bring everything out. Bring it all. And he did. Wagon after wagon traveled across the land, and when everyone there had received something, the king traveled the world, finding others who were in need. Each time he gave a gift, he sent a little sparrow to the quilt maker as a message. Years passed. The sparrows came morning, noon, and night as the king emptied his treasure rooms. And all the while the quilt maker stitched the pieces of his quilt more beautiful with every gift that he gave. And you can see it growing more beautiful here. I really, really love that. At last, one tired sparrow flew in and rested on her needle. She knew it was the final message. She placed the last stitch in the quilt and went down the mountain to find the king. After a long search, she came upon him at last. His royal clothes were in tatters, his toes were poking out of his boots, but his eyes shone with joy. She unfolded his quilt. It was so magnificent that hummingbirds and butterflies hovered around it. Gently, she wrapped it around his shoulders. And isn't he beautiful in this picture? Our universalism tells us that every person is this beautiful if you know how to look. But we can certainly see it right now, can't we? What is this? The king asked. As I promised, she said, when the day came that you yourself were poor, only then would I give you a quilt. The king laughed a great sunny laugh. But I'm not poor. I may look it, but my heart is overflowing with the happiness I've given and received. I'm the richest man I know. Nevertheless, she said, this quilt is yours. Then I will take it, said the king, but only if you will accept a gift from me. From his rickety wagon, he brought out his last treasure, his throne. It's quite comfortable, he said, and perfect for long days of sewing. From then on, the king often visited the quilt maker's house in the clouds. By day, she sewed the beautiful quilts she would never sell, and by night, he carried them into the town below, seeking out the poor and the downhearted, never happier than when he was giving something away. So, this is a very good story to think about as we go into this season where we have holidays that have to do with being grateful and with giving gifts. And as a matter of fact, in this world today, we still have people who operate kind of like kings, and they've gotten used to having a lot of stuff, and they don't always think about giving it away. So you might hear some things about doing what's called an economic blackout, right? And that's where we purposely don't go to stores and spend money that's just going to end up in the pockets of people who are as wealthy as kings. And instead, we try to only buy from people who own a small business, and we try to think of things that we can do to spread love that don't require us to give money to people who are as rich as kings. And maybe that way they might slowly start to see things differently, the way that the king in our story did. I hope you have a wonderful morning. And now is the time for everybody to rise and to depart for your religious exploration groups. Thank you.
May your mind be open to new learning. reaching and feast your eyes astounded by what you've been given before you even sit down and bountiful. And when you are a man with the pants uncovered, you lapse into a trance and you dance like a lover till dinner time is slip your mind and you can't recover like a drunkard stumbling around bountiful. The harvest moon is high in late September, and life's in great supply of the sweet and the tender. But it's the whole ordeal before the meal you will remember if you ever make it down to bountiful.
There's a moment in this song that always gets me, and fair warning, I'm probably going to cry through this whole service because I'm talking about something that matters to me, and that's what we do sometimes, right? He says, and when you fold your hands, you laugh because the words escape you. I have had that experience. The kind of gratitude so big, so overwhelming that words feel inadequate, laughable even. I remember one time it happened years ago at a silent retreat in northern Minnesota. I had been going through an intensely difficult season of ministry, the kind where I was questioning everything, where your soul feels raw and exposed. A colleague suggested I try a silent retreat, which had never occurred to this extrovert, ever. And I was desperate. So I drove up to this retreat center in the middle of the Northwoods with little hermitage cabins scattered among the trees. The host pointed out my cabin and gave me a key. I remember that as I walked toward it, I was already marveling at the beauty, the late autumn light filtering through bare branches, the quiet that seemed to hold everything. Before the door to the hermitage had even closed behind me, this wave, first of relief, and then rushing behind it, this enormous wave of gratitude, of abundance. And I just fell to the floor, sobbing, not sad crying, but the kind of weeping that comes when something inside you breaks open in a way that says it really needed to break open. I lay there on that floor, prostrate for the first time in my life, overwhelmed by the bounty, the abundance in my life. I didn't need for there to be someone or something to direct that gratitude towards. The gratitude itself was the prayer. That experience changed me. A few years later, when I first heard the song Bountiful by Peter Mayer, not coincidentally, in case you didn't notice, the same folk musician who wrote our beloved Blue Boat Home song, in case you thought it might have sounded similar. When I first heard Bountiful, I knew I wanted to mark that memory, because that song always does this to me. This memory, this feeling of profound abundance and gratitude. It took a few years of thinking about it, but that is where this tattoo on my left wrist comes from. You may not be able to see it from out there, but it says, Bountiful. It's there to remind me every single day to focus on abundance rather than scarcity. But sometimes, because here's the truth, I have so much abundance in my life, but sometimes, especially when I'm stressed, it's so easy to forget. As powerful as that hermitage moment was, as much as I want to, I can't stay in the place of bountiful. We live in a culture that pulls us back into scarcity almost without our noticing it. We're surrounded by messages that insist that we don't have enough, that we aren't enough, that we need more, or we need to be more, or do more. Ads that tell us that happiness is one purchase away. Social media shows us curated lives that make ours look or feel small. Even when we're doing just fine, those messages can make us feel like we're behind somehow. Now, some scarcity is real. Some of us truly don't have enough food, enough stability, enough love, or enough support in our lives. Families are struggling as SNAP benefits shifts. People are isolated and lonely. That's not a mindset issue. That is a justice issue. But for many of us, the scarcity that we feel isn't the whole truth. We may have enough, even more than enough, and still feel like we're scrounging, still feel anxious, still feel like the floor could drop out on us at any moment. Scarcity culture is baked into us. It narrows our focus. It keeps our gaze low. And unless we intentionally practice something different, it will drag us right back into that fearful scarcity mindset again and again and again. It reminds me of a little story, maybe you've heard some version of it, about a starving mouse. He's been scrounging for crumbs on the floor for so long that his world has shrunk down to the tiny bits that he can find. What he doesn't realize is that he's standing in a pantry overflowing with grain and flour and things in plastic bags that would be very easy for him to break into if he knew that they were there. But he can't lift his eyes to see any of it. He's too hungry, and he's too scared, and he's too focused on survival. The starving mouse reminds us that when we are in survival mode, when fear takes over, our vision contracts. We grab whatever crumbs we can see because crumbs are what our nervous systems believe are available. I know I have had this experience in my own life. The times when I've been the least generous weren't the times when I had the least. They're the times when I was the most scared, afraid things were going to fall apart, afraid I couldn't meet the expectations around me, afraid of failing the people that I cared about. Fear shrinks everything, our imagination, our trust, our sense of possibility. And our culture keeps us in that crouched, crumb-scavenging posture. Heads down, shoulders tight, eyes locked on what might disappear, even when, if we pause long enough to look up, we're in a pantry full of amazing things. This is why practicing abundance matters. Not because we're pretending everything is fine or because we're obligated to perform gratitude, but because lifting our gaze even a little can be the antidote to a feeling of scarcity that causes us to be afraid. It helps us to see what's already here. It softens fear, it opens our hands, it lets generosity come naturally again. This is what Peter Mayer is talking about in that song. He's not talking about the tidy, Instagram-ready version of gratitude, not the write in your gratitude journal every day kind of practice, which, disclaimer, I also do, but sometimes skip because it just feels too heavy sometimes. No, Peter is pointing to something wilder, something that lives in our bodies. That moment he sings about, dancing with the pans in the cupboards, losing yourself in the rhythm, laughing because the words escape you. That isn't just gratitude, that's abundance. It's a feeling that can take you over, the kind that cracked me open on the floor of that hermitage cabin. You can't choreograph it or plan for it always. You can't manufacture it. But it rises up on its own when we loosen our grip long enough for something deeper to break through. And wisdom traditions across the world know this. Abundance isn't just an attitude, it's an awareness, a way of seeing, a way of remembering our place in the vast web of interdependence. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that when you truly see how interconnected everything is, how many hands and hearts and hours went into a single meal, for example, abundance happens naturally. We don't force it, we notice it. And from that noticing, generosity flows, because when we know in our bones that we are held, giving feels like breathing. It comes naturally. And that's what we lose when we're stuck staring at crumbs, that sense of connection and spaciousness and belonging. Abundance is a way of returning to ourselves, to each other, and to the world as it actually is, not the scarcity mindset that our culture perpetuates. I think it's suitable to talk about abundance at this time of year, not just in the harvest moon in late September. And not just because it's Thanksgiving, but because we are about to head into the Christian season of Advent, the 4 weeks before Christmas of waiting, preparing, and paying attention. Advent is often described as a season of hope, but not the shiny, easy kind. It's the kind of hope that grows so slowly, almost quietly. Hope asks us to notice what's already here. The small lights, the gentle moments, the everyday blessings that we might otherwise rush past. And Advent is so deeply countercultural. Our consumer scarcity culture tells us that preparing means purchasing, that the way to get ready for Christmas is to buy more, do more, perfect more. Bigger decorations, bigger dinners, more of everything. And suddenly, this season that's supposed to invite us into presence, into a feeling of abundance and hope, becomes one of the most frantic, scarcity-driven times of the whole year. But what if? What if this year, maybe even starting this week, we try something different? What if this became a season of slowing down, a season of noticing, a season of intentionally lifting our gaze from the crumbs to see the pantry that has been here all along? If abundance is a practice, then Thanksgiving and Advent might be the perfect time to make this shift. There are countless ways that we could make that shift. But here's one that some people are trying this year: the economic blackout that Sarah mentioned, from November 25th to December 2nd, the height of corporate consumer season. The idea is simple: a pause. A week of stepping back from the marketing frenzy designed to make us feel behind or inadequate or afraid of missing out. And to be clear, as Sarah mentioned, this is not about avoiding your local bookstore or cafe. If you need or want to buy something this week, choosing a small local business is a perfect way to support the kind of economy rooted in relationship and community that we want to see flourish. The economic blackout is also not about purity. It's not a moral test or about being good, and it's definitely not about shaming someone who does shop that week. People have real needs, real constraints, and real reasons. This invitation to participate in an economic blackout from major corporations, from the frenzy of the season, is for those of us who have options and who sometimes forget that we have options. It's a chance to notice what happens when I pause. What changes when I'm not in a rush? What do I discover when I stop before reaching for my wallet? The point isn't deprivation, it's discernment. And this year's economic blackout is simply one way, not the only way, but one way to loosen scarcity's grip and to help us lift our gaze from the crumbs in the pantry, a way of realigning our time, money, and energy with our values. Of course, pausing your spending for a week isn't the only way to practice abundance. It might not even be the right way for you. This time of year invites us into spaciousness, not rigidity, into curiosity. So here are a few other simple, embodied possibilities for you to make space for abundance in your life. Maybe you practice a single no-spend day. Or maybe you make space for abundance by spending time with a friend, remembering that connection costs nothing and often gives us far more than anything we could buy. Maybe you clean out a drawer or a closet, not as a chore, as something you have to do, but as a discovery, finding things that you forgot you even had and remembering abundance hiding in plain sight. Maybe you decide to do homemade gifts this year, write a letter, bake something, or make something with your hands, gifts that carry meaning without ever needing to come from a store. Or maybe you spend 5 minutes in the morning just breathing, feeling your feet on the ground, remembering that you are already held. Whatever way you choose to practice abundance, all you need to do is pause, notice, and appreciate, and let your nervous system soften enough for your gaze to lift even a little from the crumbs on the floor to the pantry. And the beautiful thing is, we don't have to practice this alone. Scarcity culture is so loud and relentless. It pulls at us from every direction through ads, expectations, shaming, and comparison. Trying to resist that on our own can be like trying to hold back the ocean with a spoon. But together we can remember what's true. Together we can lift one another's gaze from the crumbs. This congregation already knows how to do that. You show up for each other in ways that are not transactional. You share your abundance, your time, your listening, your presence, your care, your humor, your courage, your patience. You create spaces where people feel seen and less alone. You give rides, cook meals, make phone calls, check in with each other, celebrate joy, carry grief together. This is abundance made visible. This is the pantry. This is the generosity tree. It's something the market cannot sell you because it's not a product. It's a practice, a way of living together that says you are lovable, every one of you. You are worthy, every one of you. You matter, every one of you. In a season that tells us love has a price tag and that belonging can be bought, what we practice here, what we practice together, is a radical alternative, a living reminder that abundance is not something that we accumulate, it's something we share, something we cultivate, something we become for one another. Because here's the secret that the scarcity mindset of consumer culture does not want you to know. You already are enough. Abundance is already here in your breath, in your relationships, in your community, in the quiet places in your heart that have been waiting for you to notice them. So, as we enter this season of hopeful waiting, may we prepare not by purchasing, but by paying attention. Not by filling our carts, but by making a little more room inside ourselves for wonder, for connection, for grace. May we dance with the pans and the cupboards. May we fold our hands and laugh as the words escape us. May we discover again and again that we already live in bountiful. May it be so. May we together make it so.